And we are back with more News Talk, Saga 960. So very glad you could join us today. Mark Lassoni with you. And I am joined now by Jocelyn Bamford, the president of the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses of Canada. Jocelyn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark. Good morning. Yeah, and we are taxed to the max. You know, I just keep thinking they've replaced high-paying, skilled labor jobs with service jobs that are minimum wage. So we're not better off because we're pushing our resource sector and our manufacturing sector out the door. And what's going to come behind it but only service jobs that typically pay minimum wage.
Yeah, and the middle class taxes, according to Poilievre, are up $800. I think
when you just think about what taxes we've just incurred, that carbon tax, that adds cost to when you fill up your gas tank, when you buy your groceries, everything.
So we started the organization, the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses, out of complete necessity. And we did so because we recognized there was no support for small to medium-sized business in this province and in the country.
My name is Shalini. I'm the third generation joining my family's business. We are now 40 years in Canada. This is our third plant. We employ 150 people full-time. We have 4 distribution centers in the U.S., and we currently export into Australia, New Zealand, U.S., and all over Canada. The environment for that entrepreneurship isn't there anymore. To start a business has its own challenges, and when you actually start, diminishing that, in forms of government to actually, crush that entrepreneurial spirit, it doesn't do anyone any good. And like I said, businesses have their challenges on their own through competition, through employees, through HR issues and technology and all of that. So to actually have policies and regulations that are not helping businesses grow, it just adds to the challenges.
I came here when I was at 28 or something within that range, from Jamaica. I mean, so it was, it was a challenge for me to uproot myself and to come to a new country. And the good thing about it was I got conformed into a industry that was welcoming and I saw a future in it. I saw where I could grow, I could work hard and grow and achieve what I really wanted to achieve. So what I would say to the government or whoever making those decisions is, we're hard workers. We work hard. We want to achieve our goals. We'll train hard. We're very ambitious.
We're family-run business. We've been here for 42 years in Ontario, Markham area, and now Woodbridge, and we believe in Canada and supporting the families. Many of our staff that are with us have been with us for many years, but I have to say that provincially, if the Wynne government had won again, I honestly would have had to look and say, where am I going, and would have had to take that year and a half to plan to move my facility or downsize here and open up elsewhere in the U.S. That certainly was an option I had to really consider. But at the same time too, federally, we're facing the same thing, and it's even last night I was thinking, like, how do we deal with some of these things single-handedly? With some of the proposed legislation that's coming down the pipeline, they could put us out of business, which isn't just my family, but it's the many families that are impacted. So it is scary, and I guess what really has bothered myself and Jocelyn, as well as others in the coalition, and others who aren't in the coalition but are simply businesses, manufacturers, services, doctors, is the entire anti-business sentiment that's there, that every business owner is rich, that every business owner is looking out only for themselves, or that doctors are filthy rich and they don't care about anyone else. And it's just this whole thing of pitting one person against the other. and somehow, I'm not sure when it took place, whether it was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there's been certainly a shift where somehow Canadians feel that the government knows what's best, how best to manage our money, and that it's okay to tax more because they're going to be able to do so much more for us. And the more people I come across that think like that, I shake my head. I think, like, this is just absolutely ridiculous, because there's already a track record showing that government does not know how to spend our money wisely, and government does not generate jobs.
I'm still at a loss of words for it. I think right now they need to come and see it. I think until they can actually see it and live it and understand what is going on in the real world. I always said, you know, unlike government, we as business can't run a deficit. We can't just go, okay, you know what, sorry, we didn't make any money this year, therefore we are not going to invest in our people, we're not going to invest in new machinery, we're just going to keep going status quo. Until they actually see what we are going through and what we are living through and what, you know, prices are going up everywhere, the carbon tax that just came in, the impact that it has. One antidote, or one thing that we always say here is, you can't just raise the price. You can't just go and pass it on to your client, because they will find it somewhere else. Like I said, we are direct competition is out of India, and they are someone to be reckoned with right now. So for us, we need to keep our eyes open, and it's harder to do business here and be able to compete on that same landscape.
And I don't understand why the media doesn't want, other than you and a few other players in the media, want to cover these stories, because since we started the coalition, we've seen four things happen. People move their business outright. People move their growth to the United States or elsewhere where it's not so costly and they're not burdened with additional taxes and regulations. Or they decide, oh my God, I'm done, and they sell out to a multinational and get swallowed up. And a lot of times those multinationals decide to move production in various locations very quickly, or they go bankrupt. And none of those four things are good for the Canadian economy.
So the Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers and Businesses of Canada was formed to help give small business a voice. Many of them are funded by government, and they don't necessarily have the wherewithal to speak the truth about what's going on, because they feel obligated to the people that fund them. So the concerned Coalition of Concerned Manufacturers is here to give small business a voice, and we were very frustrated not being able to get that message out there. We have 250 companies in our group so far, and small businesses do represent a large part of the government's revenue stream. We create most of the employment in the private sector.
So the previous provincial government was in fact very hostile to business, which is just absurd, because if you look at all the funding comes from businesses who provide people jobs, and then they pay taxes, and that goes to fund every bridge, hospital, and road. And the attitude towards government, specifically from the previous provincial government, that we were all bad actors, was what Kathleen Wynne called us. We saw that same with the federal Liberal government, saying we were tax cheats and they were going to come after us. And we see typically with the Liberal Party a very hostile attitude towards us. Now, fortunately, there's been a change in the Ontario government, and they have their open for business policy, and they understand that in order for social programs, there need to be businesses that fund that, and they've had a much more a helpful attitude towards reducing red tape and understanding that we need to be competitive to keep jobs and businesses here.
Well, manufacturing jobs are very stable if you're willing to put the time and the effort in. And for someone young like myself and other people that go to college for the trades, that you're basically coming out of college with a job almost guaranteed if you have the right skill set. Because most of the people who work these trade jobs are starting to retire, and there's a lack of experienced workers in the trade. Go to college, 2-3 years, get your diploma, your certificate, you have a job, and it really is helping the youth of Canada get into the workforce.
And we need to see governments at all levels understand that they need to support a competitive environment for business so that we can grow and we can hire more people and we can put more equipment in and we can give people those bonuses. But without a competitive landscape, none of that's possible. And what we see is from the provincial government that rolls back legislation that makes it be more competitive, we see a federal government that puts other legislation back in, and we saw that with cap and trade. It was removed for 4 months and then it went back in the form of carbon tax. And again, these are taxes that other jurisdictions don't have, so we're put in a very uncompetitive spot. And eventually business owners decide how many of the hours of the day do I want to work for the state and how many hours of the day do I want to work for myself. And when right now the proportion is that you work more for the state than you work for yourself. And eventually that becomes exhausting and people move to other jurisdictions where they can make some profit and where they are working at least half of the time for themselves and half of the time for the state, as opposed to more for the state and more for themselves.
We want to contribute to society. We want to, be the model citizens of this country. But in order for us to do that, we need your help. Your policies determine how far we can go and the things that we can achieve. And we need your policies to be in line with our goals and our dreams.
I love living in this country. I've lived here all my life, and it's just been my home.
So we need your help. We're doing our part. We'll work hard and we'll ensure that we play our part, but we need you to play your part as well so we can ensure that the country achieves what we need to achieve.